Hello, 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 friends, neighbors. That sounded stupid, didn't it? Hi, folks. Welcome back to 5 Minutes of Gray Hair Dave. Well, I'm starting out being a little goofy all the way around, so let's keep the let's keep the goofiness going. This is 5 Minutes with Gray Hair Dave. My name's Dave. I have gray hair. It's not all gray. It's a lot gray, but it's not all gray. I've got a gray beard. It's not all gray, but it's a lot gray. I do wear glasses like the guy in the artwork and have a green shirt like the guy in the artwork. But today, I'm wearing gray again. I have lots of the gray ones. I like the gray shirts. I don't know why. The green ones are nice, but the gray, I don't know. I just tend to go for it. Anyway, how are you today, folks? This is episode number 88. 88. Wow. And what are we going to talk about today, folks? I talked yesterday and the day before about change and what happens and what is happening in my life now. And that's all fine. Things went well again today. They went well and they went bad all at the same time. I don't consider it bad. I was confused, and so was another person I talked to from the company about some things. And anyway, things went well. Moving right along. Working on getting to that better work-life balance, which is important to me now. Never used to be important to me. It used to be work was work. Work is what you did. And now I need a little more balance in my life. And I think you are all feeling the same way too. That's why you're listening. Where did we leave off when we last talked about life of gray hair, Dave? The beginning. We were in 1976. Well, now we're going to go up to 1977 and 78. Maybe we'll start taking it a couple of years at a time. I was still at the paper mill. By that time, I was on a paper machine. You had to have a little bit of time to be able to get onto a machine permanently. And the paper mill had 8 papermaking machines. Number 1 through 8, of course, is what they were called. Number 1 was the oldest and the most cantankerous and the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen in a papermaking machine. Don't get me wrong, the new fancy ones were nice, but this old antique, we could get it to run. And when we got it to run right, boy, she was a mover. She was red. She had this giant Yankee dryer that's about 14 foot in diameter, probably 12 foot wide, and everything was done with belts and pulleys compared to motors and electric motors and stuff like that. It was interesting, really was. It was. Once you learned how to make paper on that machine, you can make paper anywhere. It was, and there were some of the guys that were on there were older, but not as old as some people that worked there. But man, were they willing to show you how to make this thing hum. There's a sound that a rewinder, what happens is the paper comes in, the pulp gets made into a slurry, as it were, kind of thing, in the pulping department. They come in bales. And then we add waters and we add dyes. Not a lot of dyes, not a lot of chemicals, but basically water. The dyes are to change the color. The pulp comes into us in 2 colors, white or brown. White is called bleached, and brown, of course, is natural. Most of the paper that number 1 made, as well as paper machine number 2, were all brown in color. So it goes from the pulper over to tanks where it's drawn out by the machine through pumps. It's refined through a refiner, and it's sent to the wet end of the paper machine. The wet, and then separates it puts it on a like a screen. It's called a wire, but it's a screen. If you think about your screen for your windows on your house, Think of that same basic idea, but the holes are microscopic. And it's probably for our machine 50 feet, about 50, 60 feet long, but it's got to wrap around and keep moving at a certain speed with the rest of it. Then you go into what's called the felt section, which is where we start taking the water out. What we do on the screen, or I mean on the wired section and the wet end, is we get all the fibers going in the right directions, and we smooth out the flow. So when it goes into the paper, the section where we take the water back out, and we start to dry it, make it a formed piece of paper, it's all even all the way across. So it goes over this Yankee dryer, and then it goes out through it, and it gets wound up on a reel, kind of like a bobbin on a sewing machine, or like like if you have a kite and you wrap your string around it, that kind of a thing. Of course, it keeps growing and growing and growing, and at some point you got to take it off, cut it into the sizes that the customer wants. Well, you do that on what's called a winding machine, or a winder, or a rewinder. And that was powered by there was an electric motor in the basement, but we controlled the speed at which that winder would go with a tension belt. It was really kind of slick. And once you learned that, you could get that paper rewinder to just hum. And I was getting really good at that. I enjoyed that. You get that right hum moving, and man, it's just gold. But a few of the older guys who worked the winder before I did were now further up the machine, because each machine had 4 people on it, right? You had the machine tender. He was the one in charge. He dealt with the wet end. Then you had the back tender. The back tender he was in charge of the drying section, the dry end. You had the winderman, which was usually me. He's the guy who's in charge of the winder. Then you have the 4th hand or 5th hand if you have 5 people on a bigger machine. And he's in charge of helping the winderman with getting the cords that you wind this stuff up on, cut, and helping move things around, move paper around, move the rolls out when they're done. He's the extra guy. And if the wet end guy or the machine tender or the back tender needs some help, he's usually the one they go to. And you can move up the machine as people move on or retire or bid out. So that's kind of how the basics work. But I was pretty good at it. These guys that had taught me how to do this taught me really, really well. And as time went on, they'd show me more and more tricks. As, hey Dave, have you seen this? Hey Dave, let me show you what happens when this happens. And I think they were enjoying it because they saw that I had an interest in it. And I did. I was really interested in how it all worked, because I'm one of those guys who likes to know how things work. So that's what was, that was my days at the paper mill. Spent most of my time as a winderman, a couple of years on number 1 as a back tender. I like to be good at what I do. It's very important to me to be good at what I do. I was a good winderman. They had problems where they got behind, they'd call me. I was a good back tender. I was trained as a machine tender, but never had to do it. And I was kind of glad, because that's a lot of responsibility. Then I transferred over to machine number 6, which was a big upgrade. It was kind of a cool machine to be on. Now, these 4 machines are all on one main floor. We've got 2 bigger machines, number 7 and number 8, which have their own buildings because they're that big. They're just humongous. 5 and 6 were big, but 7 and 8 were bigger. Bigger doesn't always mean better. Bigger can sometimes mean more hassle, but bigger is not always better. But anyways, I moved over to number 6, and I was quickly moved up into winderman because of things that happened. And then I was a back tender. I was a relief back tender. I never made the position. I didn't want the position. But, I would do it once in a while. And went through a rebuild on the machine where they bring in a new dryer and That one also had external dryers besides the main Yankee dryer, but it was a bigger machine and it was fun. But that's how paper was being made back then. Still is being made that way. Now, I'm not giving away any trade secrets here because I didn't give you exact details on exact mixes. Because I'll be 100% honest with you, I don't remember the exact mixes or the exact contents of everything. Why would I? Also, sadly, that company that I worked for was sold a couple of times after I left, but it was sold once before I left and a few times after I left. And the company has closed down. It's sad because it employed quite a few people, probably 200-300 people. No, it had to be more than that, 300 or 400 people. With all the machines running 3 shifts, 4 shifts, all that kind of stuff. I worked there for 10 years and I got out. We'll go into more of that detail later on. But that was what my life was in 77. I was working on the paper machines, working swing shift. I was having a good time. I was young. I wasn't in any trouble. I stayed out of trouble for the most part, and enjoyed life. I was making good money, had an apartment. Life was good. So that's what was going on with me in 1977, 78. What was going on with you? Do me a favor. Leave me a message on my website, 5minuteswithgrayhairdave.com. That's the number 5minuteswithgrayhairdave.com. You can leave me a message on the contact me page or on the little microphone in the bottom right-hand corner of every page. Click on there. You got to put your email in so they know you're a real person. I do not sell your email address, folks. That's not who I am. That's not what I do. Please believe me, because I haven't yet. So, on behalf of me, Gray Hair Dave, you all have a great day because it's getting ready to storm again here in Florida. And I want to get this done before that happened. So you have a great day. I hope you're having a nice week. And don't forget, if you know somebody who doesn't know what a podcast is, don't know how to find one, download one, or play one, show them for me, please. Also, if you would, smile at somebody today you don't know. You just might make their day, and it'll make yours. So have a great afternoon, folks. You be good and be happy. Bye-bye.